What all did you feel like you learned about the Rangers in 2024? Because obviously disappointing, not going to go to the playoffs, which are starting today. Are there particular things that you felt like you learned? Like, for example, I feel like you saw a big chunk of the second half of Wyatt Langford, along with what we saw in spring training and his draft pedigree and everything. And you're like, okay, I saw what I wanted. I wished he would have won Rookie of the Year, but I feel comfortable knowing that he is going to be a piece of this for a long time.
Well, I know he's going to be a piece of it for a long time.
And I think a good piece.
And I hope so. I am so confused on what I saw in 2024 based off of 2023. I have no clue what to expect in 2025.
Okay.
So I hear what you're saying. If somebody says, Mike, do you think they can get back to 90 wins? I'm like, maybe.
Yeah.
Do I think they can lose 90 games? I'd be like, I don't think so, but I don't know. Like, this year was so confusing to me on so many different aspects that I think they're going to be 500 or better next year. Mm-hmm. But I'm also very confused on pretty much the same guys who won a championship then struggled to get to 500, and they didn't end up getting to 500, but
yeah,
better.
It's a very confusing thing to be like, they're not capable of that because you just saw them be capable of it. Yeah. So some element was missing from it. And I think it's Austin Hedges. That's all the only explanation we have. And Alec brought that to the table last week.
Hedgie he's on Cleveland, right?
Yes,
I'm
is
pretty
Cleveland.
sure.
Yes,
and
it is
Cleveland won their division, and then Will Smith, they end up making the playoffs. So maybe the random guys that are kind of part of 24, 25, 26 on your team just need to be the guys that when they go to teams they make the playoffs.
That is an interesting philosophy.
I don't think so.
Suppose that's another thing we could ask.
I wasn't thinking about Hedges, but yeah, he went to Cleveland and they ended up having a great year.
Or maybe it was the loss of Will Smith. As you see, the Kansas City Royals are in the playoffs.
If they win the World Series, that will be obviously, then I will believe in Will Smith as he is the reason.
It'll be the weirdest thing ever.
That is a fair point. All right, so a lot of my questions might kind of hit this. Maybe, but I'm not sure. Confidence level in Jacob deGrom. Is it, I think he'll be there at the start, but I don't know after that. Like, where do y'all fall on confidence level with Jacob deGrom?
Not very. I know when he's on the mound and he's healthy, I still have one of the best. I know that. Just watching it looks so easy to him, Mike.
It wasn't even his best. And what was his ERA? 1.5?
Yeah.
I mean, it was minimum innings, but he wasn't Jacob deGrom yet, and yet that guy, if he comes back just that guy and were to stay healthy for 25 starts next year,
you have a top 10
he's going to have an ERA at about 2.
Yeah, so like I feel like I'm confident there. Now, Kevin, the question you're probably asking is health. I have no confidence there. So
yeah,
but just because I can't, based on everything I've seen so far.
And it would feel impossible to predict. Well, I guess you can predict whatever the hell you want.
Yeah.
But
the other thing, too, is this is all ifs. Chris isn't going to be able to answer this because he's going to try, but they really like the Japanese pitcher. I'm sorry I'm forgetting his name, but they went over and scouted him a lot. If you get him, is it a 6-man rotation for all of 2025?
Well, maybe we can ask that question and so many more. We've got the man himself, Texas Rangers president of baseball operations, Chris Young. Good afternoon, sir.
Hey, guys. How you guys doing?
We're good. How excited are you that after doing a press conference, you get to answer more questions from media people?
Well, I'm always happy to answer questions, especially when it's about, our team and our future. So I appreciate you guys having me on.
Okay, so one of the questions about the future, and we've talked about this a lot, I'm curious if you can walk us through the strategy at all. We know Josh Young looks like he's going to be a fantastic player. Evan Carter, we've seen him be a fantastic player. How do you plan for those two as being a big part of your team going forward, while also knowing that unfortunately both of them have missed a lot of time due to injury?
Yeah, it's a valid question, and it's something that, it's our job as a front office to account for injuries as part of a roster construction and to be able to fill in the gaps and supplement in areas where guys may go down. And that's just not specific to Josh or Evan. That's everywhere. It's the starting rotation. It's the bullpen. And every team deals with that. Every playoff team right now lost a significant member of their team at some portion of the season, and they were able to sustain that or withstand it because of the depth of their club and their 40-man roster, or they made an external addition at some point that allowed them to overcome. And so I think that's the challenging aspect of roster construction. And, we came into the year, we felt like we had relatively good depth within the organization, and we were hit with 2 injuries with Evan and Josh in the first really 2 months of the season, or even 6 weeks. And actually, that was a time period, too, where we didn't have Nate Lowe at the outset either. And so you couple that with, some guys that were off to slow starts, and we got behind the 8 ball, and we just didn't have enough guys that had kind of their big years, so to speak, that could fill in the gaps. Josh Smith did an unbelievable job and stepped up and really elevated us in a way that maybe we weren't expecting. But when you have that many issues in terms of injuries and underperformance combined, it's just really hard to build the depth to the level that's needed. And it's one of the things that we have to keep in mind moving forward.
Chris Young joined us here on the K&C Masterpiece on 105.3 The Fan. What do you, for this team and for overall baseball, what do you envision the future of the designated hitter to be? Because it looks like there are a lot of different ways to run it out there right now.
Yeah, there are. And I think, one, staying open-minded is something that I think is important. I never want to get there are no absolutes within the game, and so I never want to get really pigeonholed into having just one specific way of doing it or one philosophy. I think we always need to be open-minded and ways we can build the roster. But my general philosophy is that unless there's just an absolutely killer dynamic impact hitter who can't play a position, I tend to like to leave the DH spot open for a number of players to rotate through the DH spot as a way of kind of lessening their workload, giving them off days, whether that's Corey, maybe even Marcus moving forward, Adolis, at some point maybe Nate Lowe, Josh Young, get these guys off their feet by DHing, but also having a versatile piece who's a really good player who can also DH as well. And so, but that said, if the right bat is out there and somebody who's just a high impact bat who really doesn't add a whole lot defensively, we certainly will be open on that as well.
I'm really fascinated by the hierarchy of baseball based on the way you were kind of answering that question. If it is somebody like Simeon or Seager, and obviously somebody who takes pride in their position, do they ever see it even as like a one-day demotion if you're like, hey, we just need you to DH today, like take a break out of the field?
It's a great question, because one of the things that makes guys like them great is they take pride in playing on both sides of the ball. They like being an offensive player and a very good defensive player as well. And so they want to be out there defensively. And some guys will tell you it keeps you locked in mentally too, where you just don't have 4 at bats and then you go back and kind of sit and wait for your turn to bat again. So, there are challenges that come with DHing, but one of the things I love about our guys is that they want to be out there, they want to play defense, and they believe that being out there defensively makes the team better. That said, I do think it is a way to kind of give guys, a partial day off and get them off their feet just a little bit. And maybe help them even relax where they don't have to be locked into every single pitch defensively the way a good defender is.
Chris, obviously we mentioned earlier Wyatt Langford, Rookie of the Month, Player of the Month, ended the season very strong. I want to know from your perspective as a front office guy, how, I don't know if nervous is the right word, but Wyatt Langford changed his stance slightly, changed his hand placement slightly where he started his hands, that adjustment ended up really working out. How much do you like or go, oh, is this going to work in the middle of a season, making a somewhat major mechanical adjustment?
Yeah, Mike, it's a really good question, and it really depends on the objective that you're doing like that. I mean, obviously, if a player's going really well, you really don't tinker with something that's working. And so with Wyatt, he felt like he wasn't performing at the level he was accustomed to or could perform, and therefore started making some mechanical adjustments, and those mechanical adjustments worked and they paid off. And really, with all of our players, when we make an adjustment, it's just trying to get them to be the best version of themselves. And normally we have a baseline or a blueprint for what that looks like. And so we have objective data that helps us with these adjustments. Back when you and I played, it was more trial and error, and sometimes you felt like you were chasing your tail a little bit, making adjustments, not sure if you're making positive or negative adjustments. It's more scientific now. We have a lot more data to help and biomechanical analysis that can help in terms of making these adjustments, and that's what we really rely on.
When it comes to Wyatt Langford, he is turning into what a lot of people now use, whether it's Mookie Betts or Ronald Acuna Jr., and I know that he's not there yet, that those guys end up becoming leadoff hitters. Do you see Wyatt Langford in his future being a leadoff hitter for you?
I mean, I don't rule that out at all, and those are unbelievable comps, and it's awesome to hear his name mentioned with those guys. I'm not quite sure it's fair to Wyatt, as those are real high expectations for him, but I don't rule it out. I believe he can become those guys and be a great player. So in terms of the leadoff or hitting 2, 3, 4, I mean, he's going to be a top of the order hitter, and moving forward, there's no real limitations in terms of what this guy can achieve, and I'm just excited to watch him grow, and I'm so happy he's doing it in a Rangers uniform.
I think we were all really excited when we heard you in the end-of-season presser just a little bit ago talk about how you're not going to use the TV contract as an excuse for this could happen, this didn't happen. But I was curious with players like Robertson and Yates, who we all thought were phenomenal this year, who are unfortunately probably due for a raise, if you think you'll still have the budget to potentially bring them both back.
I don't know that. I can't answer that exactly at this point. My hope is that, yes, we will have the budget to do that, but I can't say that for certain. And really, our job, if we don't have the budget, is to go out and find the next Robertson and Yates that are going to come in and maybe a little bit undervalued in the market and come in and perform and put them in a position to succeed. And those guys are out there. There are plenty of free agents out there who are going to have great years that are going to get maybe below market deals. And so we need to be ready and prepared, and our scouting department does a tremendous job helping us identify those players. So, but Kirby and David have been so impactful, and we would love to have both of them back, as we would a number of our free agents, especially Nathan Eovaldi and Andrew Heaney. But I'll have more clarity in the coming weeks as to where our payroll is going to be and what we may or may not be able to do in the free agent market.
I don't know if you can answer this question or not. Can you tell us anything about where that clarity comes from? Is it just a matter-of-fact conversation with the ownership? Are there other things pending that you're waiting on finding out? Like, how do you get more clarity on that?
Yeah, it's conversations with ownership, and obviously we have some uncertainty with our RSN situation. It's been well publicized. And really the impact of it over the last year. It's unfortunate for the industry. A number of teams have gone through it, and it's a tough way. I am sympathetic with our ownership and the challenges of trying to run a business, not knowing what your revenue may be, especially a big piece of your revenue. That said, my job is to construct the best baseball roster that I possibly can, and we've got a great core in place, and I'm really excited about the group we have returning, and I'm excited about the resources that we will have to supplement that core roster. And so, I'll say this: there are no excuses. I mean, my expectation is to win, and that's how Boch feels, and we'll do the best we can in terms of the resources we have, but I am confident that we will come back with a winning team next year.
Well, I think what Kevin's also saying is as soon as you know those numbers, he'd love to know them because he loves accounting, and he'll help out in any way he can, CY. So that's the
Kevin, in fact, if you want to go have the conversation for me, I'm all for it. You can go sit in my place and then just let me know what I have to spend.
Hey, we'll connect off air. I'm great at budgets. I really am. We can figure this out.
I love it.
I was kind of curious because we saw some exciting stuff from Rocker and Leiter, and I was kind of, what's the vision for them and how integral will they be in the starting rotation next year? What kind of opportunity are they going to get?
Yeah, well, the opportunity will be earned. It's a performance-based game, and but while both guys had pretty good Septembers, it was fun. Come into camp and earn their spot on the team. And, what the rotation looks like going into camp, we have on paper right now really 4 established starters. And but I don't know. Maybe we sign a couple more guys. Maybe we don't. Maybe they're trades. I have no idea what that looks like at this point. So it's hard to commit to anybody making the team, especially a young player with, specific to Kamar and Jack. That said, they're talented enough to do it. They showed some real ability in the major leagues here at the end of the season, and I'm excited about both of their futures. And I believe they can both be mid-rotation starters relatively soon here. We need them to be. And so this offseason is going to be important for them to continue to develop, continue to improve, to come in hungry, and to earn their spot on the team. But what we saw, especially that last game in Oakland, where the two combined for the complete game, it was really cool to see. I mean, these guys were college teammates, and then we lost the game 3-2, but there were a couple bad breaks that Kamar had that led to the 3 runs that they scored. Jack came in and threw, I think, 4 scoreless. And so it was really fun to see those guys competing and showing that they're capable of being major league players. Now we need to see a level of consistency with both of them that will allow them to stay and perform, over time here and help us win.
You'd mentioned, obviously, the starters you have or hope to continue to have. With Eovaldi, is it the same basic timeline as you were talking about with the budget earlier? So after I meet with the ownership and tell you what the number is, then will you chop it up with Eovaldi? Because we get the sense he wants to stay here, but I realize this is a financially driven business.
Yeah, yes, we will have conversations with Evo, and we will do everything we can to retain him. And there may be limits as to where we can go, and I think he deserves every dollar that he gets in the free agent market. And I hope that that's with us, but I can't predict how that's going to play out at this point. But very soon here, we will have discussions.
Well, Chris, you're the best person to ask this question to. Your number 1 prospect now is Sebastian Walcott. And I've heard from people, I don't know if he's going to be a shortstop, when he makes the major leagues. And I know he's super young and made it up to Double-A this year and had a great second half of the season. What do you envision with Sebastian Walcott coming up?
Well, yes, the progress that Sebastian made this year. I mean, he got off to a little bit of a slow start, which is normal for guys in their first full season. And then to see what he did after that is really, really impressive. And it's just so exciting. He's a tremendous athlete. Mike, whether he stays at short or not, I can't predict at this point. That said, I think we'd like to leave him there as long as possible to find out. I don't want to place limits on him. But we do believe in the bat. It's got real impact, extreme exit velocity, and just an aptitude and all the things that you look for in a young player that he does so naturally. It really suggests he's going to be a very good major league player. We just need to give him time and make sure that we don't rush him, that we don't impede his development by putting him in a position that he's not ready for. But I'm very confident that Sebastian will be knocking on the door here at some point within the next, a couple years. It could be sooner. It may take a little bit longer, but this kid is going to be a very good major league player.
Chris, one of the things that we love the most about you is your competitiveness. We brought it up with Bochy last week for sure. Like we just see it. You're just talking to you. We can get that out of you. This team didn't seem to quit. Like it didn't seem like it just gave up. It seemed like it wanted to continue to be competitive. Where does that come from for a club?
Well, actually, Mac Engel asked a question in the presser that I don't know if you guys heard.
We just
were a source of frustration or a source of encouragement, and my answer was both. And really, that competitive drive and desire, it's always been there. And if we're going to do something, I want to be great at it. And I've felt that way with everything I've done in my entire life, especially. And we played this game. I know Boch plays it, or he manages to win championships. I played it to win championships, and I think we have the right group of guys that play to win championships. And there are a million individual accolades that can come, and great individual monetary rewards that you can get from being great at this game, but there's nothing like being part of a championship team, and for me, that's the ultimate. And so everything I do is to win championships, and that's what drives me. It's what drives Boch, and I think we've selected guys that have that same internal drive and desire. And when you have a season like this, nobody's satisfied, nobody feels good about it.
Yeah.
The reality is that
Yeah. Sorry, that was great answer there. Go ahead and great answer there, but we were losing Chris Young there on the phone. That's unfortunate. He was giving us some phenomenal answers.
He's awesome.
I like that one too because he was like, "Hey, it's a disappointment," and I feel that way too. Like you're gonna get frustrated if you don't hit the ultimate goal that you want.
Yeah, and Kevin, I just do want to point out if you're looking at the fan text right now, the comparison to this GM to others, sometimes they love his answers. It's very refreshing to hear what Chris Young discusses and the level that he goes into and how much he loves and knows this team too.
I mean, it might have been a connection issue this morning with Sean and RJ. I don't know. I wasn't on the phone, but you got the question of Dalvin Cook. Who, huh?
Yeah.
And the same thing with Tyler Guyton. And Mike asked about somebody who might be on the big league team in, at best, 2026. And he was like, here's my detailed breakdown about him. So, it's a really big difference.
I literally, Mike, if we'd have had more time, I was going to ask him about Cole Drake. And I bet he'd have a great answer on Cole Drake, a minor leaguer.
I was thinking about Teodo, too. But I was like, there's offseason for that. But I do think Teodo has a chance to be in your bullpen to start the year. And he would give you a breakdown if they're like, no, we want to keep him as a starter, or yeah, we could see him transitioning to the big leagues as a bullpen guy.
But it's talking to him. I'm excited I want to go ahead and get these December meetings done with, get the playoffs done with, and let's go ahead and get back to spring training. We got 4.5 months.
I'll tell you how my meeting with ownership goes.
Thanks, dude.
We'll set the budget.
We got it set up for you, dude.
I think he wants you to step in because he wants you to get a bigger budget.
That's fine. I am a good negotiator.